Live. Please. All right. Let's get this show on the road. We just want to check to make sure it's being live streamed on the Facebook. So welcome, and welcome back after the holidays, everybody. I hope everyone had a very warm and blessed and healthy, happy, peaceful holiday. All right, so we're good. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Facebook friends. Those of you who are joining in 2 days, what's up? So I just want to get started. I am Lindsay. I'm the Foundation Director of Hope Sheds Light. I guess I should introduce myself. I am a little bit nervous, if you'll excuse me. I've presented before, but I didn't really connect with the audience, I don't feel. I came from a very clinical point of view, and I was inspired today to get a little bit more personal. My background is clinical, which is how I relate to, when I'm in a professional point, I put on my professional face, but really, I really want to get to know all of you, all of the supporters with Hope Sheds Light. So I am going to get a little bit personal, and I am a little bit nervous, and I feel my nervousness right here in my stomach, which is interesting because how I relate to addiction is I'm a food addict. So of course I feel it in my stomach, right? So, and I will make jokes because that's how I deal with being when I'm uncomfortable. So we're going to laugh a lot tonight, hopefully. It's going to be entertaining. So that is how I'm going to relate to a lot of the information that I'm going to deliver tonight is through the viewpoint of somebody who's a food addict. Most of the time when I tell people I'm a food addict, they laugh and they think, oh yeah, I like to eat. And I'm like, you don't understand. You don't get it. It's an eating disorder. And a lot of people don't pay attention to the fact that liking to eat is much different than having an addiction, having the rituals, obsessing about food in the same way that somebody obsesses about alcohol, the same way that people obsess about drugs. It's no different when you're a food addict, except for you actually have to eat to live. So that's interesting that you actually have to eat to live, but yet you're a food addict. So it's definitely an ongoing challenge. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. So when I relate the material that I'm going to deliver tonight, it's going to be through the viewpoint of some of my clinical background, some sharing experiences, and just different interactions I've had with my patients, as well as myself as a food addict. And some of it's really funny. So hopefully we laugh tonight, and hopefully it doesn't get too clinical, because I want to engage people. I don't want to be talking at people. So, but I do want to start with our new year and talk about our new year. Hopefully this doesn't come crashing down on me, because the new year is about new beginnings. Ta-da, there's life. Fresh start, new year, New Year's resolutions. But before we get to the new year, we didn't get a chance to reflect on last year. And I know that last year was a tough year for many people. 2017 had definitely a lot of ups and definitely a lot of downs, and it was a rough year. But we got through it. And when I met with Arvo yesterday at my office, one of the founders. For those of you who don't know, Arvo is one of the co-founders of Hope Sheds Light. And he popped in my office to say hello, and we were talking about this evening's presentation. And he showed me an excerpt, welcome, out of the big book. And he wanted me to, and I agree with him, to just review the message for December 31st. So I'm going to read it, and if I stutter, I do apologize. I was tutored as a child, but I always stutter when I'm reading out loud. So, raise your hand if you want to speak. It's okay. So it says, now that this year is at an end, I'll take a few minutes to contemplate the progress I've made and to thank my higher power for my growth. What did I contribute to my success in this year? Perhaps it was as simple as as profound as daring to come to my first meeting or to keep coming even when it was difficult. How have I reached out to others in the fellowship this year? Did I set out literature? Chair a meeting? Clean up? Perhaps I welcomed a newcomer or gave them my phone number. Maybe I asked someone to be my sponsor or opened up more deeply to the sponsor I already had. Have I thanked that person for all that they've given me? Have I recognized my growing ability to love and trust others? Perhaps I finally understood the first step or really committed myself to working on some of the others. Maybe I had the faith and courage to make some hard decisions. Am I discovering that I do play an important part in my own well-being? I will celebrate my achievements and be grateful for all that I have been given. I am not perfect, but I am excellent. I am not perfect, but I am excellent. That is profound, even if I stutter. So I just want us to take a moment and reflect on the past year. Even though it may have been a difficult year, it still had ups and downs, and there were still many lessons to be learned. And when we come into the new year, we jump right into new and fresh. You know, I saw driving down one of the roads, there's a sign that says, "New is better." They're selling houses, which is good. But we always look at new is better, but where are we with the old? Are we unresolved with the old? Where did we go? What did we hope to achieve in 2017, and did we get there? Okay? So we look at the new year, new beginnings, fresh start, New Year resolutions. By a show of hands, how many of you made a New Year's resolution? Fake it. No, I'm just kidding. In 2017, how many people made New Year's resolutions? And how many actually followed through with your resolutions? Let the record show one person is raising their hand. Let the record show. But we want to look at why. Why does that happen? New Year's gives us a chance to start over, right? But how come we don't start over? Why is that? So when we come to New Year's resolutions, we've identified a need for change. We say there's something in me I want to change, right? And I did this every year as a food addict. I'm going to get healthy. Of course, I'd eat my brains out in between Thanksgiving and New Year's. Like I would, eat the house like it was burning down. I mean, Grandma's cookies, they just kind of showed up everywhere. But every time I identified a need for change, but I came up with an excuse not to change. Because I'm not going to change because, well, it's Thanksgiving, and I need to eat because it's a holiday to celebrate. So I'm going to eat, and I'm going to eat everything I can. Because you know what? Come next week, I'll start my diet after Thanksgiving. We're good, right? And then Christmas comes around, right? So, but you're prepping for Christmas for what? A flipping month after Black Friday. So what is it? Cookies. Oh, wait, we're baking? Oh, I got to eat the dough, too. I mean, it's not complete unless you eat the dough. But it's all about the food. When you're a food addict, that's all you hear when it comes to celebrations. You don't think about spending time with family and slowing down and enjoying those around you. When you're an addict, you focus on what your addiction is, and that's all you're obsessing about. So we can identify the need for change. We can identify what to change, and usually it's the situation, not the behavior. So what did I want to change? I wanted to change the way that I looked. I didn't want to change my behavior. I didn't want to stop eating. I wanted to change the way that I appeared. So when we look at New Year's resolutions, we can look at what it is that we're trying to change. Is it the situation or the behavior? And that's something to look at when we think about codependency. What is it that we're looking to change? Okay? When we have our loved one who's using and we're struggling with them, are we looking to change the situation? Too often we find ourselves looking to change them. I want that to stop. But nobody goes into the introspective of what do I need to change in order for me to have a better handle on the situation, right? I'm going way off script here, but it flows nicely, right? So we look at when we try to change others, what are we looking at here? Oh, our friend. It's control. We love control, right? So in my title here, I have control, but it also says false sense, right? So I'm going to use the example of how many are afraid to fly, right? My husband and his entire family, right, they don't fly. I'm like, what? Like, who doesn't get on an airplane? They're afraid to fly, terrified. So I sat down with my husband and I go, what is it? What makes you so scared to fly? He goes, well, I'm not in control. Oh, okay. But yet you're not afraid to drive. Mm-mm. Why is that? Well, the car has brakes. So does an airplane. Why are you afraid to fly? Well, I'm not in control of the plane. But you're in control of a car. Mm-hmm. Are you in control of 2 cars ahead of you, 2 cars to the left, 3 cars, and the dip that's texting behind you? Are you in control of them? But that doesn't scare you. No. Mm-mm. That's a false sense of control. And that's where I look at his fear and I'm like, it's really interesting that you're scared to fly. Because when you're driving, it's a false sense. It's a facade that we're afraid and we think that we're in control when we're driving. Jesus, take the wheel. Right? So can we control others? No. Can we make them feel? And this is my favorite. Can we make somebody feel something? Right? Taking responsibility for someone else. If I, then they. Right? And this is my favorite part of codependence because it comes out like, all right, so I used to have a very tumultuous relationship with my mother. And I don't know if she's watching, but hey, Mom. And I always get so tense. So I'd be driving down the road, thinking I was in control. And I would plan out a whole argument that we were going to have because I wanted to say no to her. But if I said yes, it would make her day. And of course, I'm not going to make her day. Now, all this stuff is going on in my head. And as I step outside the situation, I think about control. Oh, I think I'm controlling her. I have that kind of power? I'm like, what? Am I like God? Like I can make her feel a certain way. Poof. Magic. Like a magician. So part of that codependent relationship is that she would play on that, right? So she knew it, right? So, and she still does it to this day. And this is a kind of a funny story. So and this is not funny, but she has cancer, okay? But she's kicking its butt, right? So she called me up one day and she goes, Lindsay, I have something I don't want to tell you. And I'm like, it's really bad. She's about to give me really, really bad news. She goes, now brace yourselves. This is a hit. She goes, my numbers are at 0. I go, Mom, that's fantastic. She goes, but I didn't want to tell you. And I said, why? She goes, because when I don't tell you and you think I'm sick, I get my way. What? How flippin' codependent are you? Really? You're not going to tell me. And she's right. I'm not going to lie. I still went out to IHOP with her because I was like, well, she's sick, and she plays that guilt trip with me. But that's the codependence. And I know that I laugh about it, but not every situation is that funny. Because that is how our loved ones and the codependence revolves. It's all about that play. And we believe that we can control the other person, and they let us believe that. And that's the trippy part, right? So taking responsibility for somebody else. If I say yes to going to IHOP and watching her eat those delicious crepes, even though I'm a food addict in recovery and can't eat those crepes, then she will be a happy camper and leave me alone for the next half hour, 20 minutes, maybe a half a day. And then she's going to ask for something else. Because we're codependent. That's just how we roll. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything here. All right, so something else that comes when it comes to codependence is bargaining. And that goes right back to if I, then they. Bargaining is to what? To negotiate something. You bargain. There's usually a give and take. When I looked this up online, part of the definition was to negotiate the terms and conditions of a transaction. We do this with other human beings, and not just to gain something. We do this with behavior as well, right? But it gets better. Just hold on. So part with something after negotiation, but get little or nothing in return. That's something, right? So now you're telling me that when I bargain with somebody, I am getting little to nothing in return. That's some BS. But that's all part of codependence and part of bargaining, because what we get in return may be a little bit of peace just for a smidgen of time. But again, it's a sense of false control, right? I love that I'm seeing nods, head nods. These kind of head nods, not this. We see this. That's good. So, to be prepared for or expect. But we bargain with human behavior. We get little to nothing in return. That had me so tripped up when I was reading that. My mind was like, I was like, oh my goodness, that really happens. So, false sense of control. Is this fun? Are we having a good time yet with this false sense of control? Are you having fun not flying? Are you having fun, thinking that you can control other people's emotions? If you do, come talk to me. I really want to get to know you. Right? So let's review. So we have a need for change. We have given tools for change. In previous presentations, you had Dory and Pam and other educators show you the different tools that we need for change. And part of that is support. And here at Hope Sheds Light, we give tons of support. And we also offer resources for other supports. There's actually Al-Anon, the printout for Al-Anon out in the hallway. We give education on codependency, education on addiction. We teach you self-care. I know that Dory and Pam were talking about the meditation, right? How many of you were here for that meditation piece? And how many of you really enjoyed it? It felt good. You were able to release for that period of time that you thought, this is great. I'm going to do this more often. Since then, how many people did? Oh, that's not bad. That's actually good. Congratulations. That's good. That means we're progressing with self-care. I know I did, and I thought it felt really good. I was like, this is nice. I was in a warm, cozy spot, warm fuzzies. And then I never did it again. I was like, okay. Obviously, I still need change. It's a journey. We tried for change, but it didn't work for me. I love this, right? In all my years of treatment, I talk to people who are trying for recovery, and when I was doing their intakes, and I do this because I typed a lot, right? They'd say, oh, I went to inpatient. Okay, what happened? Well, it didn't work for me. Oh, I tried NA. I tried AA. It didn't work for me. Really? That's something. It didn't work for you, or you didn't work for it. So what happened? Looks like there's some music playing. So we're going to look at the stages of change, and I'm going to try to make them as unclinical as possible, but they really are important, especially when we're taking an introspective look at ourselves as well as our loved ones and where they're at. And somebody give me a head nod if it's getting too clinical in here, because I could just stand up here and crack a couple jokes. Is it getting too clinical? I don't want it to be too clinical, right? I've always wanted to be a stand-up comedian my whole life, so, I mean, I got the material. So we recognize the need for change, but why don't we change? We say that change doesn't work for us, but why? Okay? So when I was a food addict and I knew that I needed to change, right? I was able to see that there was somewhat of a problem, and I was never able to succeed at any of the diets or anything that I tried. And I'd always be like, why, right? I'm going to tell you. It all has to do with the stages of change. Are we really ready to change? And readiness is very important, especially when it comes to dealing with our loved ones, addiction, our codependent behaviors, because too often we have people in our lives that we just want them to change so bad. We want to change them, which is that false sense of control. Surprise! And we also want to see them change. You know, you look at somebody who's using and you're like, why won't you stop? Why won't you stop? You've lost everything in your life. You've lost your job. You've lost everything. You're about to be homeless. You know, I want to change you. I want to inspire you. If you do it my way, you're going to win, win, win all the way. Your life's going to be better, everything. And then they don't. Why? They're not ready. Right? And stop me if we've gone over this before. But please don't, because this is all I got for tonight. So, we have the stages of change here, right? In beautiful purple. Pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and relapse. Relapse doesn't always happen, but in some processes, it's part of the process. Okay? That means I'm going too fast. That's not enough time. So when we look at pre-contemplation, this is the denial stage, all right? No problem, they're in denial, they're defensive and emotional. If you point out, now when I was in food addiction, right, I had a person point out to me that I had a food addiction. Well, I flipped my lid. I was like, what? Me? You're going to look at me and tell me? What are you talking about? I got so mad. I mean, tears, everything. You know why I became emotional? Because I was a food addict. Who knew? Apparently everybody else did. Not me, because I wasn't the problem. It was everybody else. You know, it's America with the additives in the food. It had nothing to do with my behavior. It's America's problem, because why do they make everything so unhealthy? How come I can't just eat a cheeseburger and enjoy it with some fries and a large shake, and yes, supersize that, please? For real, like serious. America's problem, not mine. So then, you know, we see that I was not ready to change, and they don't see the problem. Another example of this, because this is my favorite stage. I will say that this is my favorite stage. And this is the one that I find the most humorous in that it's so asinine. Like, it makes sense, but it totally does not make sense. So when I worked in treatment, I worked in a methadone clinic. And I had a young gentleman. He was a very charismatic patient. He was so much fun. He met with me every week. You know, we would sit down. We'd have like 50-minute sessions. That's 50, not 15, 50-minute sessions. He was engaged, everything. Every time I brought up his urine, cocaine. And I'd say, why? Like, there's cocaine in your urine. Yeah, but that's not why I came here. I came here for my heroin problem. I'm clean. I'm not using heroin. What? What? So he looks at me. He goes, well, no one ever died of a cocaine overdose. What? Ready? He did not realize that that was a problem. In fact, he came into treatment because he realized he had a heroin problem when he had to dip into his cocaine money to buy heroin. That's when he realized that he had a heroin problem. And that's what, you know, that's the disease of addiction. The bargaining in your brain is like, but you don't think that you have a cocaine problem. There's no problem there, no issue, right? So when we want to help somebody, when we see them in that stage, validation, if we validate where they're at, right? Have we heard of meeting them where they're at? Okay, this is where you're at. You're not ready to change, okay? Make sure you validate it's their decision. Ball's in your court, your decision, okay? Encourage them. There is other alternatives, but if someone's not ready, you can encourage. But if you lead a horse to water and they don't drink, you're not going to kick the horse in the tush, right? You're just going to lead it to the water and hope it drinks, right? You can review the risks and plant a seed, right? That there's a technique. It's a whole other technique, a whole other clinical thing, motivational interviewing. All right, this is where we meet them where they're at. We do a little motivational interviewing. Sometimes you could use some reflective listening, and when somebody hears back at them what they're saying, they're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like when my mother heard what she was doing with her codependent behavior and telling me if she didn't tell me that she was better, that my behavior would be different and she'd be a happier person. Like, I'm like, okay. I should review the risks with her. Don't do that no more. Let's stop that. All right? Then we go to contemplation, right? They know that there's a problem. They're teeter-tottering. Do I change? Do I not change? Do I change? Do I not change? Right? They weigh the risks. They're able to recognize it. They realize that there's benefits to changing, right? So in my food addiction, I call this Weight Watchers, right? That's when I paid all that money to sign up for Weight Watchers. That's how that looked in food addiction. Weight Watchers. Knew that there was a problem. I wasn't really ready to change, but I had something in mind that I knew that I could, that I say that I knew I could do, but I really couldn't. But they recognize that there's benefits to change. Okay, so when you recognize that your loved one has now moved from pre-contemplation into contemplation, how you can help is again validate, again throw the ball in their court, again encourage. But then we take it a step further with some pros and cons. All right, so I'm hearing that you want to change. What would the benefits be, and what would the costs be, right? So when I was in Weight Watchers, or when I was about to sign up for Weight Watchers, the cost would be, how am I going to afford this all the time? What I wasn't looking at is how much money was I freaking spending on food, like all the time. Like if I cut my food bill in half, started counting some points, went to Weight Watchers, everything would be better, right? Not so much. But you look at the pros and you look at the cons, and then you can promote the new healthier behavior when our loved one's in that state, right? So if you have somebody who, they're aware that they have a drug problem, they're not sure what to do with it, they realize, maybe I should go to rehab, but I'm not sure, I'm too scared, I have a job, I don't want to make that much of a commitment, just sitting down with them, remaining open, and saying, there's some pros and there's some cons, let's talk about it. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Unless you're dealing with a food addict, do not mention an elephant being in the room, it's very insulting. Not a good thing. So the next stage is preparation. You identify that there's a problem, you know what needs to be changed, and then you start researching. All right? So you have a loved one, and now they're going to start looking at rehabs. Start weighing their options. Maybe make some phone calls. They understand the benefits of change, and they're getting ready with their options. So they're starting to line up their options. They recognize there's a problem, what we could do about it. This, I lied earlier, this would be me going to Weight Watchers and looking at the meeting and checking out, the nearest meetings, going online. I'm getting myself ready to set up to change, right? So when you see your loved one in here, now's a really good time to, again, validate, but also assist, right? Look at discussing the obstacles with them, all right? Weighing those pros and cons, but taking it a bit further and planning for those obstacles. Okay, and helping to get over them, as well as offering support. Show them where there's support, because that's a really good time to intervene with that. Okay? And this could go with anybody. If you have somebody who's acting goofy in your life and you want to, just see where they're at. As well as New Year's resolutions. That can go with New Year's resolutions. So, and then there's action. That's like game on, baby. Game on, right? So they're actively involved in taking steps, right? So I'm in the car and I'm driving myself to Weight Watchers. I'm like, boom, I got this, right? They believe in the change. The warning is this can be short. This could either be the catapult that takes them where they need to go, or they're on their way to rehab and they say, oh, I have to go to Wawa, I got to get some smokes, got to smoke my last pack of cigarettes. They get out of the car and they bolt. This can be as short-lived as an hour long. And this is why when we're looking to maybe get someone into rehab or to change a behavior, once we get that action, we have to be weary, because it could be so short-lived. We all hear of all the different programs in town, like the Blue Heart program. It used to be the Blue Heart, now it's just Heart program, about getting people into treatment. This is why it's such a jump to get somebody. Like somebody says, I'm ready to go to rehab, boom, get them in now, transportation, whole nine, because in an hour, they might not want to go. They might not want to do this, all right? And that's how come the other build-up stages are important, going over the obstacles, maybe talking about that fear that comes with that. You know, even when you're working with somebody, if you have a family member who's in a codependent relationship and you're trying to give them support in changing their behavior, okay, you need to be able to weigh those obstacles with them ahead of time. Okay, so look at them and be like, all right, so what's going to happen when we get in the car and you get scared? Not going to happen. BS. Yes, it is. Let's talk about it. Let's be out in the open and talk about it. So when you help with them, you can restructuring the cues, social support, bolster the self-efficacy, combat feelings of loss, right? So this is a good time. That's when they're about to bolt. They're about to get out of the car, and you're like, no. Like I know you're going to feel this way. Let's talk this through, and really focus on just the communication that's going on in that situation. And then we come to the maintenance phase, right? So they didn't bolt, they went through with treatment, and they're living their life, and everything is going well. They're maintaining the behavior, they're able to avoid temptation, and the goal is staying at status quo. So to help with this, you plan, reinforce, and you discuss coping with relapse. And that's important because they need to know what their relapse might look like, or their slip up into old behaviors, okay? Anytime I was working with someone who was ready to come off of methadone, I'd look at them and be like, okay, so how bad does the pain have to be before you use the pill? What? I'm never going to relapse. What does that look like? You need to know what that looks like. This way, if something happens, you know what that looks like to prepare. And I will tell you, I know what my relapse looks like, smells like, and tastes like. I have it in my head. I know what that looks like, but because of that, I can plan ahead. I mean, how many people can say that they can actually smell their relapse? I mean, this girl can right here, because I know what it tastes like, and I know what it smells like. Any questions so far? Anyone want to add in? Is this getting too drawn out? Is everyone entertained? Like, just enough? People are smiling just a little bit. All right, so then we look at the relapse. The return to old behaviors, the fall from grace. A lot of people, this is, when they give up their New Year's resolutions, and then they don't go back. But how you can help in this situation is keep an open mind. Evaluate with them. What happened? What happened? What was your trigger? Let's learn from this. Right now, with Hope Sheds Light, we get a lot of calls of people going from treatment into sober living. And one of the things we talk about with them is clean time before they relapsed. And I always ask them, what happened? And what did you learn from it? It's okay that you relapse. Relapse happens. But what did you learn from that? What was your takeaway? We always talk about takeaways. What did you get from it? So when somebody goes, nothing, I just decided to clean up. You have to learn something from it. Everything in life is a learning experience, right? So we have to take that situation and learn from that situation. Just like I learned to make sure I make time for my mother so she doesn't pretend to be sick and actually show up, go out to IHOP with her. All right. So, to bring this all together, we're going to look at step one. All right? We're going to take the control, take what we're looking at change, and we're going to look at, we admit that we are powerless over our addiction or someone or something else, and that our lives have become unmanageable. Let it go, and let Jesus take the wheel. Now, I would say that this is by far one of the hardest things, especially somebody who's a codependent or someone who suffers from addiction, okay? So there was a situation in which I was holding on to feelings. I had a confrontation with somebody, and I was holding on to these feelings, and it could not be resolved in that moment. And my obsessive brain, which is part of addiction, I don't know if anyone knows, was going, I gotta fix this. I have to fix this right now. I have to fix this right now. I have to fix this right now. And then I was like, you know what, Lindsay, check yourself, right? Give it up to God, right? There's the answer. I'm just going to give it up to Jesus. Take the wheel. I'm good. Well, guess what? I gave Jesus the wheel, and I held on with my pinky. I was like, oh, I'm still hanging on. Standing, sitting there. God, please take this out of my hands. I've done everything that I can do. It's out of my hand. Now, I was holding on with my pinky. I had to let go. And I finally did. It took a lot of work, though. That's hard. It's hard to let that pinky go. That steering wheel, it's a nice steering wheel. It feels nice. right? So we have to admit that we are powerless over other people and let it go. Give it up to our higher power and realize there's only so much that we can do as human beings. We cannot control other people. God bless you. We cannot control other people. We cannot control their feelings. We cannot control what they say, what they do. No matter how much that you think that you can make a person's day better or worse, and no matter how much they tell you that you have that impact on their life, you don't. Because guess what? They own it. They own their feelings. Nobody can make you feel a certain way. That's a choice, right? And I would say that I don't think I really bought into that until maybe a year ago. I didn't fully understand, and that's part of the self-esteem thing. That's a whole different topic. But realizing that you have to own what you can own, and somebody else can own what they own. You cannot make that person better. We can only control how we react to that person, okay? And that comes down to how other people interact in a codependent relationship, right? My response to my mother is everything, right? So I would sit there and plan all these arguments in my head, right? She's going to say X, Y, and Z, and then I'm going to come back with X, Y, and Z. And it was like a football game. There was offense. There was defense. She was over there. I had 50 yards. I lost 50 yards, and then there was a touchdown, but not so much, because then there was a penalty, and then a flag was thrown. It was just this whole big mess, right? Until I realized, wait a second. I need to control my response. If I went through all of that, got my defense up, and I was ready to brawl, why didn't I change my defense? Why didn't I just back off and take a different approach to the situation? And that's something we need to think about. See, we go back to the change talk. We want to change, but are we letting change work for us? Okay? Are we actually going to change the way in which we interact with that individual? And that's what we need to be holding on to. Because we can't control their response. We can plan this whole big fight all we want, and X, Y, and Z, but guess what? Change yourself. Change the way that you respond to that person, and it really trips them up. I'll tell you that. When you suddenly change, when you're like, okay, instead of, they get like, what just happened? There's no, like, they're like stumbling, like, what just happened, right? And then they have to think of how to respond. And a lot of times, it kind of brings them down. You know, kind of like when I'm in a bad mood and I look at my husband and I want to yell at him and I say something and he just goes, "You're right, sweetie." I'm like, "What? No, I'm not. I'm not right. What are you talking about? Fight with me. Argue with me." "I love you, sweetie." "What? Don't tell me that. I'm not going to fight. I want to fight." Anyway, so we can control the way that we respond to other people, but we can't control the way other people are going to respond to us. So I was going to play some Elsa music of Let It Go, but I think some people that might have children might be sick of it. But if anyone wants to break out into song, you know, have at it. I do have a microphone. So some tips on letting go for change. Make the decision. Make the decision that you're truly going to let it go. Don't tell Jesus to take the wheel and then hold on with your pinky. Don't do that, because your pinky's going to hurt. Self-expression of the feelings. Once you identify your feelings, get them out. Tell that person how you feel. Write it in a journal. Yell at a cloud. If you're angry at God, yell at God. Something that we don't identify enough, and a lot of people, if they see you upset, they say, "Oh, don't feel that way. It's okay." It's such a minimization of feelings, all right? Why can't you feel that way? That's BS. If you're pissed, be pissed. It's okay. You're angry, be angry. You have the right to be angry. You have the divine right as a human being to feel whatever it is that you want to feel. So if I'm going to be mad at my mother for dragging me out to IHOP and telling me that she's better and she's playing the sick card, no. I have a right to be mad. I'm still going to go to IHOP though. Did I mention that? We're still going to IHOP. Own it. Own what you are doing in the situation. This is so important because this comes down to, don't play the victim. "Oh, they did this to me. They did that to me. They did this to me." No, they did not. You let it happen. Own it. Own your feelings. These are your feelings. Be proud of them. Even if you're angry, get pissed. Say, yes, I'm pissed. It's my feeling. I'm going to own it. So when somebody tells you, oh, you made me feel, you stand up and say, Cupcake. Suck it up, Cupcake. You own it. I'm taking responsibility. You take responsibility. Stay in the present, all right? We used to call this the mailbox, all right? Don't bring up stuff from the past, right? So anytime that, you have a little slip up, that person, the codependent relationship, writes that down. They put it in the mailbox for later. And then a fight breaks out. And you just open up the mailbox and you're like, you did X, Y, and Z. 6 years ago, you said this. You looked at me cross-eyed. You told me I look fat in those pants. No. Stay in the present. Deal with the situation at hand. And don't go into the mailbox and take everything out of the mailbox. That's for the Postal Service. Don't worry about that. You got this. Stay right here. Forgive. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things to do. And I will tell you that because a lot of times we need to forgive and we're not getting an apology. All right, so let that sink in. So we're being told now that we have to forgive somebody even though they're not sorry. And the reason for that is because it's your feeling. It's your own. Again, own it. Own it. It's yours. Forgive. Let it go. Be like Elsa. Don't freeze everything up, but let it go. Okay? Something that I have been told by others is that when we are having a difficult day and we want to feel value, go make somebody else smile. You can't make them feel a certain way, but smiling is contagious, right? Add a little value to somebody else's life every day. This is what I actually call my sweet spot. I talked with a life coach or some sort of coach or something recently. It was a free thing I got from a conference. He was pretty interesting. But one of the things that I learned from this mind scan thing, it was very interesting. I just laugh about everything, so I'm kind of rolling my eyes a little bit, was that my sweet spot is talking to other people. I don't know if you noticed. Hello. But he told me my sweet spot is adding value to people's lives every day. And I will tell you that if I'm in a bad way, and let's say I go to the Walmart, dressed like a human being, a regular human being, fully covered, right? Going into the Walmart. I'm sorry. Just see a lot of funny stuff on Walmart, right? So I'd walk up to the cashier. The 3 people ahead of me, they're on their cell phone checking out. The cashier says, hi, how are you? No one's interacting with each other. It's like, why don't you just go to self-checkout? Because you're not even talking to the human being in front of you. I stop and I say, how is your day? What time do you get off of work? Do you have any good plans tonight? They either think I'm a stalker, but that's okay, because I do it with a smile, right? They either think I'm a stalker, or they actually take the time to tell me how they are doing, And I will tell you that also helps when you have something awkward on the belt that you're about to check out that you're kind of embarrassed about. That definitely helps. When you're shopping for mom's hemorrhoid cream and you're about to check out, you can make conversation with the cashier. Then they're not questioning your purchase, right? They're not looking at that like, Anyway, add value to other people's lives and make them smile, because that's so important. Go get 'em, Tiger! That's it. Now is the time of the evening that we do break out into small sessions. I'm thinking we should just do 2 groups tonight because it's a small group. I will take half the room and Joan's going to take the other half of the room. We also have the surveys, and I feel awkward bringing it up because I was just the presenter, and I'm going to talk to you about the importance of doing the surveys. I won't look at them, I promise, or don't put your name on them. But that is how, moving in the future, if we ever want to get grants or we need to look at funding or something, this is how we do it, by giving out statistics, and we do that through these surveys. So I know that they seem just kind of like a pain in the tuchus to do, but if you guys would just take a few minutes and fill out the surveys so that we can use them. Yes.
I just wanted to take a second to comment on your, we didn't open up for questions and comments.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just want to first thank you so much for your self-disclosure and your vulnerability. I'm not only am I a recovering addict and alcoholic, but I got a triple whammy. I'm also recovering from food addictions, bulimia, and anorexia, and I suffered in silence because it was the 90s and no one talked about it then for 15 years plus. I always had that low self-esteem, which we find often in addicts and alcoholics. You getting out here and sharing this and in the live feed too is just so inspirational, and I know that you're going to touch somebody's life, or somebody here is going to hear someone talking about it, and then they'll tell someone, and the Hope Sheds Light name is out there in association with it. There's so much guilt and shame associated with eating disorders in particular, and we've got to get up and talk about it. And just because you have this wonderful appearance, oh, she's got all her stuff together, you know, yes, you can defy the stigma associated with it. So I just applaud you so much on that.
Oh, thank you.
And it just opened doors for so many people. I guarantee it today. Someone will go home and say something, or observe the behaviors in their daughters or sisters, or occasionally a man. But thank you so much, Lindsay.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to close the live feed. See you later, Facebook.